The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm your host, Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two excellent co-hosts,
Nate Heininger
and Shane Kelly.
And yes, it's me. I'm back.
Welcome back, Raygan. We managed to do 2 episodes before the wheels fell off, and we had to resort to reposting.
The wheels haven't fully gotten back on yet, but that's okay. Here we are.
You're back,
man. Yeah. So for listeners who may have missed the messaging, I've been away because I have just celebrated the birth of my 3rd child.
Woo.
And so my whole household is in baby mode.
Shambles.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What a gorgeous baby you have.
He's
just a good boy.
He's a good boy.
Yes, congratulations, Shane, Uncle 3X now. So, you know,
Just on one side, I'm also an uncle many times over on the other side as well.
this is really Shane's big day. So, congrats, Shane.
Yeah,
it
congrats
really
to
is.
you. I
It's
did
all
it all
about
for
me.
you, bro.
I appreciate that.
Weird.
Yeah.
As a twin, I mean, I always like to make this point. Your kids are as genetically similar to me as my own. So I count them as my own children.
The courts may have something to say about that, but I appreciate the sentiment.
This is weird insect law.
Yes. The Punnett Square says Shane is correct.
Yes. And it's, I mean, it is wonderful to have these great new little people around. But of course, as having little people around does, they are disruptive to our podcast. Other shows out there have like season breaks, and they'll be like, they'll have like a hiatus. Not us. No, sir. Our dedication to playing one video game a week is nearly perfect and has remained so through many stages of life. And I appreciate that about all of us. I hope our listeners get it.
We've been holding on tightly to the concept of this podcast for 8 years now, and every episode is planned, produced, and released on like the turn of a dime, or like with chaos underneath it at all times. So whenever
little miracles each episode.
Yeah, so whenever and Raygan is at the center of it. So when we lose Raygan for a month, it's chaos even more. And me, Laura, and Shane are just running in circles. So we're glad you're back, Raygan. We need you. Congrats, but get back to work.
I had big ideas about like paternity leave, even though I've been through this process twice before, right? And every single time I'm like, paternity leave is going to be great. It's going to be just me and a baby. We're going to be sitting on a couch. I've got a Switch or a Steam Deck. I can, prop my feet up. I can feed the baby every now and then or do whatever the baby needs. And in between, it's not like baby's bothering me. Baby can chill while I play some games, right? And I always think that. And it never plays out that way. It never does. And I think it's mostly just because the more disrupted your schedule and sleep cycle and general household vibe is by the addition of a new baby, just the less brain space I am able to dedicate to literally anything that takes even an iota of concentration. So I've tried to start several games. A couple of things that y'all have done, like I downloaded the Slice and Dice and like took one look at it and was like, brain say no. And like some, just some of the IF comp stuff, I started trying to like, I can get it on this. I can play 2 IF comp games. I could play one. I could read. I can still read.
I know how to read. I'm a big boy.
I don't know how to read right now. My brain is off. it's in baby mode, and it is 100% incapable of doing shit.
Well,
so I really am glad that you guys managed to keep the podcast rolling in pretty good form. The 2 episodes that you guys put out while I was baby mode were really good. I really enjoyed listening to them. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I totally understand what you're saying. I will say, however, when I was on paternity leave, that is also when I played Hollow Knight, like almost to a 100%, like true ending, everything. And so I wonder if it's the type of game that you were going for, because I found Hollow Knight to be a good way to like turn off my brain and just fight bugs for 45 hours. And not to be a perfect segue, but that is kind of what we're talking about today, right?
8 years of practice does get you pretty good at segues, Nate. And there you go.
We're talking about finding the right game for the right time in today's episode. Shane, why don't you set us up?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I actually like about using this as a chance to experiment with the show a little bit is our format has always been essentially just reviews, right? We want to do these panel discussions reviewing games, and I think we have a really great grasp on that. But I also have wanted for a long time for us to be a little more experimental with the kind of topics that we cover. And a topic that I really wanted to explore this time around is multitasking with games, because that's what all of us are doing right now. Especially Raygan is desperately trying to multitask. Maybe once your brain has recovered and your sleep, I should say, is probably the most important, has recovered a little bit.
I can't. Not to derail, but I can't complain too much about the sleep. That side of things is mostly falling on my wife. It's not like my sleep is improved. I am still being interrupted and having to get up occasionally, but I'm not like sitting there feeding baby. Where that's my wife is the real hero there. So like, cannot complain at all. But still, I've definitely been off. I'm coming back, but I've definitely been a little out of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough when you have such a big shakeup in your life, and this has been a time for me to be kind of thinking about the ways that games fit into our lives as those lives get more busy or less busy. And there's something that is kind of interesting. We end up when I am busier, I end up with so many things that I want to do. Like I've been trying to catch up on the new Lord of the Rings show and things like that. And the more my life gets filled up with various, wonderful things, the more I find myself multitasking. And so I start by asking, so the topic for this episode is multitasking and video games. And I wanted to start by asking you guys, how much of your just general media diet is spent multitasking? This is so common today to like be on Twitter while you watch TV, or to be, we're specifically going to be talking about games as we get into this, but how much of your media is multitasked these days?
Shane, I'm so glad that you brought this topic to the table, because I don't feel like as a podcaster I've had enough time to talk about a game called Slay the Spire. And this is giving me yet another platform. But you're right. So obviously, like, multitasking between purposeful multitasking and just our addled brains addiction to the little shiny device that we carry around with us everywhere we go, like, has resulted in me being a media multitasking person pretty frequently. But I do, with some intentionality, participate in media multitasking pretty frequently, because I have found over the last several years that probably my preferred form of like evening relaxation after kids are in bed or whatever it might be, long day at work, is that I really like to listen to a podcast and play a game that is suitable to listening to podcasts with. And so I opened it with a joke about Slay the Spire, because I know I talk about that game all the time. But like, there's a reason why I have put so many hours into that game. It's not like I'm sitting every day and very directly and very intentionally super focused on playing Slay the Spire for, at this point, hundreds of hours. But it is really somehow it's really relaxing to me to fire up a run of Slay the Spire, put on whatever podcast is next in my rotation. I listen to too many podcasts and just sort of relax. I'm not a person who relaxes in the way of like, oh, I just want to sit on a beach or like just sit on the couch. I don't really watch a lot of TV or really watch a lot of movies or anything like that. It's like podcasts and playing some sort of game is my way of like, I don't know.
I wonder how many of our listeners are playing a game while they're listening to this podcast right now. If you are, let us know what game it is you're playing. Maybe tweet at us or hit us up in our Discord.
I have a kind of a different approach. Like I do multitask while watching media pretty heavily. If I'm watching a TV show or a movie, I find it very irresistible to look at my phone. And I consider that a bit of a vice or even like a bad habit. But I do it a lot. So I am definitely a multitasker when it comes to media. I'll listen to a podcast or an audiobook while, doing literally anything that occupies my body and not mind. I'm a big multitasker when I listen to podcasts while driving and washing dishes, but also cleaning the house or, literally anything. Like my brain simply rejects boredom in all of its forms.
I cannot hear the sound of my own thinking. I need the next episode of whatever improv comedy podcast that I'm addicted to.
So I do that like to excess. And when it comes to video games, though, I do the thing that Nate was describing, playing a game while listening to a podcast. But I try not to, because I have a lot of difficulty sticking with a game if I allow myself to look at my phone. I have kind of the phone brain problem that, is the modern condition. Like if I'm dancing around it. I basically spend a lot of effort trying to sort of fight social media and smartphone addiction type of issues. Not that I'm like losing my job because I'm scrolling through LinkedIn posts or whatever, but like I do have the kind of brain that gets that will lose hours to scrolling through completely useless crap on Reddit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I know that about myself, and I have to really manage it. I have to do things like set screen time limits on my phone for social media apps and try my best to stick to them. Or if I'm having a particularly bad day or week of it, sometimes just delete those apps from my phone completely so that I won't cheat. And I have to, if I am wanting to focus on a game, I find it irresistible to pick up my phone and look at something else. And so I have to really be careful not to, because otherwise I will lose the enjoyment of the game. I will spend, I have an hour or 2 hours to sit down and play a game, and I want to spend that time doing something that I know I'm going to enjoy. And instead, my bad brain decides that instead I ought to look at 500 posts, on Twitter that I will get absolutely nothing out of and remember zero about the next day.
Well, research shows that heavily multitasking while you're watching media or whatever that media might be, watching, listening, worsens your retention and your short-term memory, not just about the thing that you're multitasking, but just in general. It shows that you have lower performance on attention intensive tasks,
such as video games.
Yes. And so, this is something where, on the one hand, I in general, I want to say to, myself and to our listeners, like, hey, this is something I'm trying not to do. But even that said, sometimes, just like Nate, you were saying at the beginning, like want to play a less attention intensive game to keep my hands busy while I'm listening to a podcast, something like that. And we are on this show about fitting games into your life in different places. So the thing that
no judgment from me, by the
absolutely.
way. Like, I have certain limits I have to set for myself. But I actually think like there are a lot of people that get enjoyment out of the kind of multitasking that I am specifically trying to avoid in my own life. That's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's not the activity. It's how it relates to me.
Listener, if you are thinking that we're telling you to shut this podcast off so you can pay attention to Peggle,
no,
au contraire.
Turn off Peggle and listen to us.
Absolutely.
That's right, actually.
Yeah. Well,
listen, if you are not listening to this podcast in a darkened room with nothing going on, then you're doing it wrong.
Pull the car over.
You can have a single candle lit and a nice cup of tea and just let it flow through you.
But finish the tea before you start the podcast, all right? I don't want to hear you sipping.
Yeah, it's too much stimulation. No, I mean, I think it is about finding that individual balance because it's what are you trying to get from the moment? Because like for me, with like my Slay the Spire, like I really am just wanting to listen to the podcast. Slay the Spire at this point has gotten to a point where like the decision making is generally like I've got the flow chart down, you know, and I can.
I don't even see the numbers anymore. It's just blood, redhead.
Yeah, I could just play, and there's other games too, you know, but there is like there's a threshold for me where as soon as it gets slightly more intensive with decision making, like I tried to do it with Into the Breach, and I could not. There's too many decision points going on in that game at any one point for me to be able to actively enjoy both. But certain games, it works for me. And I try like, but mine is a lot of trial and error.
Well, I have spent a little while digging into this, and I saw some online discussion about the topic of multitasking. It was part of what inspired me to get this episode going. So I have some ideas around what I think are probably the best kinds of games for multitasking. So if we want to be intentional about it, if you want to choose games that are going to fit into those times where you really want something that's going to help keep your hands busy or keep your mind half busy, what is going to work well for that kind of a concept or that kind of a context? So I have a list of different kinds of games, and I'm going to run down it, and let's see if we can come up with some examples or suggestions for our listeners. I also like this as a way to approach some games that aren't really appropriate for the show in other contexts, because a lot of the kinds of games that I like in this zone are not the same kind of games that I can easily bring on the short game. You know, we tend to lean towards things that are hard to multitask with. Things
narrative
that are
heavy.
Yes, absolutely. Narrative heavy games that involve a lot of reading, games that are more artistic, and you really want to absorb the aesthetic of the game in an interesting, with your full attention, right? And also just in general, if I'm playing something for the show, I owe it to the game and to the show to actually pay attention to it. So here are the games that aren't that.
If I can just jump right in and share a very recent experience of uncovering very quickly a game that was not that, and I should have known, but I'm addicted to sitting down with my device and listening to a podcast and playing a video game. So I thought, hey, I'll do this with this game. I love doing that. I have been, as I've talked about it several times on the podcast recently, I've been playing through Disco Elysium. Maybe the crunchiest, most narrative, most like reading first game I've ever really put this degree amount of time in. And for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to sit down and try to listen to a podcast and re-enter the world of Elysium, which is basically a 1 million word long poem.
You fool!
Yeah, I think I made it like 30 seconds into the game where I had, I don't know, some like infotainment show going in my ear, and I'm trying to read Kim scolding me for taking drugs, and I was like, I need to stop. I cannot do this. I'm not enjoying either of these. So it is finding that what's that right spot for you. So Shane, you said you've got a list here.
I do.
Yeah.
So the first kind of game, and this is a kind of game that I really like. I have sunk hundreds, likely thousands of hours into this kind of game, and that is survival games. For me, the original survival game was Minecraft. I don't think I really played anything other than survival mode in Minecraft before that kind of had that same play style. Do either of you have survival games that you have loved in the past?
I've always really appreciated the idea of survival games, and I've dipped my toes into a number of them, but I've never really gotten to the point of like truly like understanding and feeling a degree of like competence or mastery in most of these survival games.
I loathe the genre almost to a single. Like,
we're off to a great start then.
Yeah, I can't think of a single survival game with the single solitary exception of Minecraft back when it was relatively new, and even then I was mostly just into it for its aesthetic and social aspects. The entire survival genre is absolute death for me. I cannot play it. I hate it. So please continue.
Well, I will then be the one to suggest. So, of course, Minecraft is a great one, and I think the longevity of that game really speaks to the quality of it. It's an excellent game, an excellent experience. A whole generation has grown up on that game, and it basically invented huge swaths of the concept. But for me, the one that really scratches the itch is No Man's Sky. I've spent many hundreds of hours in No Man's Sky and accomplished nearly nothing in that time. No Man's Sky, to me, is one of those perfect games for listening to while I'm listening to a podcast or something, because it really, truly is all about the vibes. You can engage with these hundreds of different systems in that game. There is a story, but that story is presented in a very meandering way. If you haven't played No Man's Sky, it's a game that came out all the way back in, I believe, 2014, I think.
God, really that long ago?
Yeah, it's been around a while. Let me double check.
Yeah. Well, you and I have played No Man's Sky together. I was one of the fateful day one purchasers of No Man's Sky, yes. And I have also enjoyed that game in different
all the way back in 2016. Yeah, I got it on PlayStation 4 when it came out. I was one of the launch day purchasers.
Those of us who loved the the Conan interview and all the hype around No Man's Sky. I mean, I have a generally positive perception of that game, but if there's not yet, there will be books written about that game's launch, and
it's a case study in like the games industry. And it's a completely unique one. When it launched in 2016, there was a great deal of hype driven by kind of Sony putting a lot of marketing money behind it, and the game really failed to control the hype that was surrounding it. And so there was a huge backlash based on people's expectations having gone way out of control about what the game would actually be. What the game has been is a really excellent example of a game that has spent years, many, many years, evolving in response to community feedback. And so for people like me who have played hundreds and definitely, I've played at least 300 hours of No Man's Sky. I know I've played about 200 hours on PC, and I know I played hundreds and hundreds of hours on it. So probably 400 or 500 hours, at a reasonable estimate. And the game has all of these fabulous interlocking systems. But what is really great about it is just the sense of exploration. You really are exploring this gigantic universe. And every time they would release a new update, I think they're on 4.0, just released, it adds new systems to interact with, new things to see in the world. It's not a game that I'm constantly playing, despite the number of hours I'm saying. It's a game I'm dipping in and out of. Whenever I have that gap in my play time, I'm coming back to it. So I have been kind of trying to drum up support amongst the cast of the short game to do an episode that is really more of a deep dive on this game.
You had your chance while I was gone, Shane.
Yeah.
It's funny. Do you still think this game is, and I haven't played for a while, and I know it was like kind of labeled as a survival game, but like it seemed to me that the survival aspect of it was really only the first, like, can you get, off the first planet, and then after that, you're pretty much like never gonna die other than stupid stuff, or you just like fall off a thing, but
well, I mean, yes and no. Like, I think every game has different levels of like difficulty to engage with. The game does have like elements that are hard and elements that are that are not so hard. And it's going for a very specific aesthetic and game feel. One thing I'll say about it without getting too much into it is that 4.0, which is released alongside the launch of the game on the Nintendo Switch, adds a enormous new level of control over the difficulty of about every aspect of the game. So you can tune everything from how expensive things are to how punishing death is, to how difficult combat is. And I've found myself really, really being reinvigorated in some of the elements of the game by that, because some things I wound up turning the difficulty up, like, for example, space combat. I wanted to have more difficult. And then some things I wanted to turn the kind of more punishing aspects down, like the damage that happens to some of your technology when you get blasted out of the sky. So I'm really enjoying that game again. I'm back on it, playing on the Steam Deck. I won't spend that much more time talking about it because I really want to get onto other kinds of games. But one thing that survival games have that I think is really kind of a whole genre of games, more than a genre, it's an overall umbrella of games, is that makes it good for multitasking, is that this is a game that those are games that have a grind to them. Do you guys play any games that have grindy elements where you're kind of trying to get those destiny guns?
Mostly RPGs for me. And I don't play a ton of RPGs. As I've said on the show before, like I basically can manage about one RPG a year, in along with other gaming interests and commitments. And so like I have to choose my RPGs pretty judiciously. But I do enjoy the grind in an RPG. So like I like, looking at my party and saying like, okay, my next goal is to beat this boss or clear this hurdle or whatever it is. I think I probably need to grind, several levels. Let me do some runs in a dungeon and do that. And, going through that sort of repetitious action of like, let me, go engage with the combat system and try to build up my team or whatever. I find that really rewarding. I think that the series I go back to a lot is the Persona series. They have the kind of alternation between, you get some time doing the sort of visual novel, talk to people, slow life sim kind of stuff, and sometimes where you are just in a dungeon grinding. And I like the dungeon parts. I mean, I like the talking too. I like the dating and the whatever, but I really like the dungeon parts because they're predictable. I know if I'm sitting down to grind in a dungeon in something like Persona, or I'm currently playing through like dungeon encounters, anything like that, that I know what a run, or not run exactly because that's the wrong word, but like I know what my play session is going to be. I know exactly how it's going to work. It's predictable. And that is really good for this sort of multitasking. I know, like, if I'm in dungeon encounters and I know I'm on, X or Y floor, and I have a goal in mind. My goal is to get down 10 more floors to get to the next elevator or whatever. Then that is a pretty defined challenge, and I have a pretty good sense of whether I can do it or not. If I can't, I have a pretty good sense of what I need to do in order to improve my team and stats in order to get there. And so for me, like, that's a big aspect of this sort of thing, is like the predictability of it. Predictability doesn't have to mean like monotonous, but it does have to be like I know what I need to do. I'm not going to be like trying to like deeply think about what my next actions are. I'm mostly just like trying to enact a plan that's either, a plan I already have or something kind of self-evident. Like I don't need to figure out that I need to go down 10 levels. I need to go down 10 levels because that's where the next elevator is and I know it, that kind of thing. So anyway, for me, JRPGs are a big aspect of this. Not just JRPGs, but mostly JRPGs. Western RPGs tend to be structured in a little more freeform kind of way, and I just have a harder time sort of making them. They don't grind in quite the same way. So for me, it's mostly JRPGs.
Yeah, I played Horizon Zero Dawn. That was the longer game I was playing before I did Disco Elysium, and I couldn't really ever do podcasts while playing that game because it was so sporadic and there was so much talking and like story that I wanted to be involved in, that even though it was kind of grindy because you're fighting a lot of monsters or, robo dinos over and over and over, it still always felt a little too like it required my attention too much to really be able to listen to a podcast and enjoy. I don't know that I have very many grindy games unless you consider like like repetitive effort to complete to be sort of grindy. And I'm thinking more like Celeste was a big podcast game for me.
That doesn't make sense to me, but that's great.
Yeah, I probably did listen to podcasts while playing Celeste, but like, it's not the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
I do remember you being a Destiny OG though, Nate. So that's a very grindy game.
Yes, and for sure.
And you were a WoW guy too.
Well, that predates podcasts for me. Yeah. All the MMO stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you look at like, if there was like a stat sheet of games, of hours played on video games, for me, it would probably be something like World of Warcraft number 1, EverQuest number 2, Destiny might be number 3, and then we get into stuff like FTL or something like that, more modern stuff. But well, not that FTL is particularly modern. I guess like when I stopped playing MMOs as my exclusive type of video game that I played. But yeah, I mean, Destiny, I don't think I was really listening to podcasts at that time. I mean, I guess we were starting up this show around the real OG, because I played Destiny from beta and then for a couple years, and I can't even count the amount of I basically 100%ed OG Destiny, which is an insane thing because I had all 3 characters with every weapon on all. It was insane, but I didn't really listen to podcasts because also that's a social game. Yeah, like a lot of that for me was playing with friends, and even though I had to play a lot of stuff offline, like I guess maybe I was, but like like I think like some roguelikes stick out to me as like grindy games that I listen to podcasts.
Let's set aside the grind. I mean, every popular game has an element of grind these days. That's just how games are being made. But you kind of called out one type of game that I think is a great multitasking game, and that when you mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn, that's the open world game. Open world games of that sort, we definitely don't cover much on this show, but they are huge. Just look at things like, Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and all of that. We did cover The Pathless, which I would consider to be a great multitasking game. It was a game in that open world game mold, but it was a lot shorter and very forgiving game design. Do you guys have any other open world games that you've played? I know it's not something we do for this show, so maybe not.
Well, this is where I align with Raygan a little bit more, is that if I'm really, I don't play a lot of those games because they're normally long and I don't have space for that. But if I am, I want to be like in it, And so like listening to podcasts and playing an open world game kind of feels counter to the whole point of like open world to me. The intent is to be immersed in it. And so I try hard not to multitask. If I'm going to play Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever it might be, like I want to play it and I want to be a part of it.
You're not going to open up that YouTube video essay on the side and just check that out.
No.
Yeah. So this is, I'm kind of agree with Nate. Like I don't play a ton of open world games. The kinds of games we play for the show are so rarely open world. And then the open world games that I have mostly played are pretty narrative focused. So I mean, the first thing I think about is like The Witcher 3, which I was severely obsessed with.
Yeah.
But that, like, I wanted to hear and understand every word spoken by every character I encountered.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really listen to podcasts while playing the game. I occasionally would, like, if I knew, like, okay, I have to, clear out all the drowners in a swamp or something like that.
Rarely am I playing a game and I'm like looking for the moment to play a podcast. I'm not like, oh, this is an open world, but I'm entering into a dungeon grindy session, so let me throw on a podcast. It's more like this whole game is sort of a multitasking game for me, or it's not.
I do occasionally, I'll put a podcast on and play and pause it occasionally in something like The Witcher 3 is a typical example of that. Like I might, hit play on it while I'm doing something a little more boring and then pause it when I hear somebody talk or something like that. I don't do a ton of that, but like it is a thing that I do. It's helped that things like the AirPods have made it pretty easy to just like leave one in and like click it and play and pause. And so I don't have to like fumble with my phone for that to happen. But there's enough friction there that usually if I am clicking in and out of a podcast, either the podcast or the game is going to lose, and sometimes it's not the one that I want to win that wins. You know what I mean? So I try not to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a few more of these different kinds of games, and as we get further down the list, we're getting into ones that I think are a little bit more appropriate for our show and our audience, and are also games that I like multitasking more. Some of these are games that I think, or styles of games that really do work well. And the biggest thing that makes a game work well for multitasking for me is if it is turn-based. Games that are turn-based, obviously, if you take your hands off of the game does not continue. You are explicitly having to continue things and move time forward. So we play a lot of games that kind of fit into this mold. Of course, games like Slay the Spire, Nate. But the thing that those really enable me to do is to not just do what we're talking about a lot here is media multitasking, but I can pick up a turn-based game. If I'm playing on my Switch or something, I can bring that into the kitchen and I can wash a dish, take a turn, wash a dish, take a turn. So that's something that makes games work really well for me. Do you guys have any turn-based games or strategy games? Or maybe we'll just expand this out to include those card crawler style games as well that you like for this kind of gameplay.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this up because, yes, I've talked about Slay the Spire, and that's a game I talk about a lot. But this gives me an opportunity to talk about a game that I don't really get a chance to mention very much. It was a little game called FTL, which
oh god, here we go again.
Which is essentially a turn-based game because you get to choose. Everything is on a predefined like timer, and you can pause at any moment, making it like a turn-based game. And I recently kind of got a little bit back into it, completed some old achievements that I'd never really gone after, unlocked some things that I'd never unlocked. And all the while I was listening to podcasts because that's another good one that I can sort of like you said, it's turn-based. You can sort of divert your attention in different directions as needed. It's not technically turn-based, but I think it acts like a turn-based game.
Speaking of acts like a turn-based game, the first thing that I thought about here was like Shane's not going to have a category in his little list he's going through here for this, so maybe I might as well bring it up now. And that is a big one of these for me is golf games, which are functionally turn-based in that a golf shot is something that takes a very small amount of time, but then you're sort of like watching the effects of it for a while, and nothing's going to happen if you're standing at the tee and you don't hit the button to shoot. So like it functionally has that like that time management aspect of a turn-based game where like you can, and here I know I'm talking about golf games, so I'm once again a parody of myself, but like this
Bing. We're both doing that, Raygan. You and I are just exchanging our tropes.
I know. But like this is I'm thinking about it specifically right now because while I've been on leave, the only game I've been able to get my brain to put any significant amount of time into has been the new PGA Tour 2K23. It came out on October 14th, my birthday. The stars aligned. The universe gave me a birthday present. It was a new PGA Tour game, and it is very good. Basically, it's the same as the last one, but they're sports games, they're golf games. It's fine, but they made some very nice, tasteful additions and changes. And the one thing that made me buy it day one was that they added the 3-click golf swing mechanic to it. Past PGA Tour or the previous PGA Tour game, PGA Tour 2K21 and its predecessors, the Golf Club games, which didn't have a PGA Tour license bit back then. It had used an analog stick swing mechanic that was very similar to the like Tiger Woods games from the PlayStation 2 era and stuff. And you had to like physically move your analog stick to swing. But they've added in an option that you can choose to do the click, 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 meter-based swinging. It's got its own slight twist on it, but it's basically the sort of golf swing mechanic that I like. And finally, it's in the good officially licensed golf game. And so now the stars have aligned. And that's one that like I can have brain off golf time, man. Like that is like nothing is better for multitasking, listening to a podcast or what have you, than blue skies, sun, hit golf ball. It goes in the water. I don't care. Whatever.
None of this matters. Nothing matters.
It's
sink
great.
into nihilism.
And if I am distracted or need a moment, golf doesn't go anywhere. It just stops when you stop. So that's a good one.
Just like real golf.
I hadn't thought about that until now, Raygan, but like, it's been a little while since I've actually engaged in this game, but for a long time, I played MLB The Show a lot. They have somehow managed to mess that up, so I don't really like it anymore. But
I'm sorry, Nate.
So it was fine. They added all these like dumb, frankly, like monetization things and weird stuff where like
sports games.
Now you're upgrading your glove, and this glove it's like that.
Wow.
It used to be that MLB The Show was actively trying to emulate as best it could what like it was like to play the game, and they had a mode called Road to the Show, which you would play an individual player, like it was basically an RPG, and you'd be like a pitcher or a first baseman or whatever, and all you would do is the events that were related to that player. And so like you'd play a game and you would do your 4 at bats and maybe like 3 or 4 fielding events. You get some points, level up your guy, go to the next thing. And that was a really good zone out game because you just like do small baseball.
That sounds like grinding.
It kind of was, but it was kind of like just like what Raygan's talking about. All these sports games, or at least baseball and golf, there's some similarity there where a lot of it is just like
stick.
It's like a stick thing or like a meter thing. They both have stick and ball games. Sticks and balls games. But it's like a lot of it is just like meter manipulation, especially pitching, which is what I really liked. And so you can get into these sort of like zones where you're just locked in on the timing of whatever the weird power meter thing is. And I would listen to podcasts and play those. But now the games are like, oh, you have to get the gold Spalding glove that costs 400 tournament coupons that you acquire through $4, or it's all stupid. So I kind of stopped playing it. But like,
can't win the game without the $15 virtual glove.
Well, it's weird because if it was a RPG of like, slaying dragons or whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta get those gauntlets of strength. But it's a baseball game, so I'm like, there's no gauntlets of strength in a baseball game, and it's like crossed the line for me, So
I hear you, man. Yeah, there's some of that in the PGA games too, but I mostly ignore it. I only play single player in that. I don't really engage in its online functionality, and so I mostly spared the worst of its.
Well, it's a big
depravities.
It's a big part of Road to the Show now, which is frustrating, and
that sucks.
For someone who is both like extremely gamer and extremely online, Raygan is surprisingly not online gamer.
Yeah, no.
Well, but Raygan's the type where he is extremely online but hates every moment of it. So, it's like true. Most people who participate in online games actively kind of enjoy the feeling of being online. Raygan is never happy when he's
I try not to be online. I really hate the feeling of being owned, wrecked, corn-cobbed.
It wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes in a Halo lobby.
Exactly.
I've started playing just a little bit. I dipped my toes back into Fortnite recently. I played that game basically the first 3 weeks it came out, and I haven't played it since. And I thought, it might be fun to get in on that a little bit, see what it's like. And it's like, oh my God, what even is this now? I don't want to sound too old man about it, but it's pretty wild how much that game is what it's become. But that's not what this show's about. But I've been getting wrecked because I'm horrible at it. I'm pretty sure that I'm playing against bots or children, and I'm still really bad at it. So it's kind of fun though.
I hate to drag people back to the topic I was ostensibly raising, which was like turn-based games, but I have to because there's a game that I've been playing. Raygan put me onto that has been my multitasking game for a while, and that is a game called Peglin.
You're still playing that? I need to go back to that. I really, really enjoyed it, but I got it day one when it came out in early access, and I played it for a few days, and I haven't gone back to it since. And I know there've been some updates. So how is it looking these days?
I haven't played it in about a month or so I'm not totally up to date. But Peglin is great. It's a combination of several of the things that we're talking about here. It's a kind of turn-based in that you're just drop the ball and then watch. It's kind of a roguelike, similar to the card crawler kind of things we're talking about. It's somewhat of a strategy game. There are some strategic choices that you made, not really, not in the sense that strategy games are really meant, but basically Peglin I think it's in a good spot. If people haven't tried it, you should. On this show, we're on the record as being big fans of Peggle, and Peglin is Peggle plus you're a goblin. And when you bounce on those pegs, it is also the goblin is fighting little guys. It's magnificent.
Love little guys.
Yeah, I really liked Peggle is such a brilliant game design. And I was always kind of surprised that we didn't see more Peggle likes, either just sort of aping Peggle more or less exactly, or tacking that game design onto other things. And then suddenly we saw several of them all at once. There was one called Round Guard that was on Apple Arcade, I think, that was basically a Peggle RPG. Peglin, which is definitely superior to Round Guard in my opinion.
Agreed.
And I think there was one other. I'm not remembering it now, but it's great. Peglin is a really great, applying the Peggle thing to a larger scale, giving it some more progression and different ball types, and just sort of extending the concept a bit. It's really great.
What are you playing this on?
I'm playing it on Steam Deck. It's on Steam. I don't think it's out on anything else yet because it's it came out in early access, and I don't think it's exited early access yet. I believe it'll probably hit other like consoles and stuff once it does. But I definitely recommend it. And we've been thinking about doing an episode exclusively on Peglin, but just haven't done so yet. I think we should too, actually. I think it's a great game. When I first checked it out, it was pretty slight. Like it felt like it was definitely in need of some content updates. I think it's had some of those now. So I don't know how close they are to their like planned completion, but it seems like it might be a good time to jump onto Peglin, or I don't know. Check it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do some research on that and see if maybe it's the right time for us to do a episode.
Yeah, I'd love to go back to it.
Mm-hmm. I would love to play it while watching some TV.
Perfect.
Yeah, and speaking of playing it on the Steam Deck, so that's most of the different kinds of games. I have one more kind of game that I think is kind of cheating for this list, and that is I've multitasked a lot while playing Elden Ring, and just in general, like,
it doesn't count.
No, it doesn't, because that's an intense like skill based game. But games that are like pretty story light and like really skill heavy, once you get over the hurdle on like the skill getting up to the level where you need to be, you'll get to a point where like you really can multitask. So I'm gonna cheat and count that.
So you all seemed aghast when I said Celeste, but that's the same thought I have, because Celeste, when it's more about execution than it is necessarily, like, to me that's all about getting my hands to do what I need them to do. You know, and
fair enough. I'm a complete hypocrite.
Especially like
once you get good, then you can
like
multitask.
The Seasides stuff on Celeste and the like expansion that came out, like where it's like so hard. I like needed a podcast to be listening to, so I didn't just go insane trying these things, because you're just doing it over and over and over and over, and I need something else to keep me like focused, or I think I'd throw my Switch through the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the one other thing that you kind of missed, Shane, is we haven't talked about puzzle games, which, like, what is there better than like playing some Tetris while you do with a podcast or whatever?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it depends
we
on
talked
what
about
you
maybe
mean by
calling
puzzle.
this episode podcast games. We ended up landing on multitasking games because, of course, there's other ways to multitask. But like, man, puzzle games are the thing for this specifically, like those sorts of score attack games or score attack games in general. I was also going to call out again to become a parody of myself, Combo Postage by Kirk Lindsay, friend of the show, a game that I go back to like at least once a month and just continue to absolutely love and try to beat my high scores on. Sort of an action puzzler.
Raygan, don't stifle yourself. Talk about City Connection too.
There is no City Connection 2, Shane, sadly.
City Connection also.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, I'll do it. No, I don't multitask when playing City Connection. I got to hear the music. I gotta zone in on that, not zone out. No, I do. But yeah, like I wanted to shout out Combo Postage. It's on Steam. It's like $3. You should definitely buy it and play it. It's wonderful. Also in a similar vein, for me, one of the top ones here is the Mr. Driller games. Great games, all of them. The one that was recently re-released, we did a whole episode on, is a great place to start. It has a zillion modes, and there's just so much to that game. But like the basic, just like drilling action in that is great for if you're wanting to like put on a podcast and play a game. The only downside there is that then you probably aren't hearing or are hearing less of the incredible soundtrack to that one.
Yeah, that's where the one headphone in, one headphone out really comes. So you still
this is a total sidetrack, but like I've been looking for ages. This exists in some cases, but like I really want more headphones to support multiple inputs, because like AirPods, I use AirPods because they're so good at being the thing that they are. But like they don't let you and you can pair AirPods to your phone and you can pair them to your Switch or to your Steam Deck or your PlayStation or whatever, but you can't do them both at the same time. There are some very gamery headphones that do support that feature, and I really wish more things would. Things will say like, yes, they support multiple devices, but what they mean is you can pair 5 devices and it will listen to whatever is the last one you selected. There are very few headphones where you can have a single pair of headphones and listen to audio from 2 separate sources simultaneously, and most of the ones that do are very gamery. I need more of that. If anybody has a trick,
listeners, if you know a tiny wireless earbud that is also a mixing console, let Raygan know.
They do exist. I forget what there's one from, I think Razer has one.
Say about Raygan, gamer headphones always look so cool. So why don't you want to wear those?
I want the ones with the cat ears on top, Nate. But like, I if anybody knows like a hack to like listen to your Steam Deck and a podcast at the same time, the only way I've found that I've managed to make this work for myself is that I will occasionally pull up. I use Overcast as my my podcast player. And they have a web app that sucks but does kind of work. And I will occasionally pull up Overcast in a Chrome tab on my Steam Deck, background it, and then switch over to a game. And that does work, but it's a huge pain in the ass. I would really prefer to just listen to both devices at the same time.
That's, I guess I didn't realize that I wanted that as well, but now I do. So, let me know.
I just I bought 2 sets of AirPods and I paired one.
Brilliant.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Stereo.
I have 2 sets of AirPods. Shane, you've just solved my problem. I have my new AirPods Pro, and then my old ones were broken, but once I got the new ones, I was like, hey, I wonder if I could get Apple to replace my old ones under their like quality repair program. And so I did, and they did for free. And so now I've got the new AirPods Pros and the old AirPods Pros both.
Wow.
Well,
and then
what
if
how
I
much
do
could
that?
a banana cost? $10?
$10? Yeah. So now maybe I should. That's a good idea. Shane.
There's another genre that you haven't brought up that I've dabbled in with this, although we kind of did with Destiny. But the first person shooter, just straight up like PvP games. So I have played a ton of Overwatch in my time, and that game is very audio cue heavy. So you can't, if you really want to be good at it, you truly can't not listen to the audio because it's a huge part of the game. But it is pretty good for that sort of half and half style, listening to a podcast, but still having the audio loud enough for only one ear open. Where you can hear the audio cues, because that's another one of those games that is just repetition over and over and over, and
Yep.
So
yeah, I can't imagine playing Overwatch that way. But right now I can't imagine playing Overwatch 2 at all. So unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, I've dabbled a little bit. I mean, it is Overwatch 1 with some horrible monetization elements layered on top of it. But the core game, if you like Overwatch, it's going to be. It's fine. I am playing Overwatch 2 on my PS5, and I see no visual or anything different about it from Overwatch 1, other than some map and character changes. But that happened in Overwatch anyway. The monetization and unlocking stuff is frustrating, but I'm such a casual player at this point that I don't really care.
Yeah,
and
I kind of feel the same way about shooters. I didn't really consider that as a thing for my list, but I have played a fair amount of the current Halo, which is kind of I have some mixed feelings about it as a game, but in terms of just like mindless shooter experience, it's actually pretty damn good. So
that's what Overwatch is for me. And don't get me wrong, I totally understand and respect the frustrations that a lot of people have with Overwatch 2. So not to say that they're wrong, but just my like interaction with Overwatch at this point, it's not a significant change for me because the core game is the same. It is almost like there is not an Overwatch 2, and they totally screwed up everything, and they had to commit to the title of Overwatch 2 instead of just continuing to slowly patch the game into what it is now. But
oh boy, there's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, that's a whole
here, isn't there?
That's a whole other thing.
Well, I had a whole topic for us to consider on like physical, like what is the hardware, like how are you actually multitasking in your games? But what do you think? Do we have time in the episode left to talk about like actually how you sit down and play?
I feel like we've kind of covered that to some degree.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of have. We already talked about Steam Deck
and Switch and headphones and all that. So I don't know that we add much. But
I was gonna drop one quick thing in, which is like, and this is maybe specific to the iPhone users in the audience. I'm sure there's similar functionality on Android. If you are the sort of person who I talked earlier about how I have a lot of challenges with multitasking, and I specifically have to leverage a lot of stuff to keep myself from multitasking. And if you have similar struggles, like, hey, I really want to play that game, and then I have time to play that game, and then I didn't because I did other stupid shit. I have made a lot of use of some of the built-in system features on iOS to help me manage that. The key ones that you should think about doing are, one, they have the screen time feature in iOS will let you set caps on the amount of time you spend in any app. And in order to overcome that it's mostly meant for like parental controls, but you can just use it on yourself. And you set a passcode, and you have to enter that passcode to go over. So like I set, like, for example, like an hour a day or 2 hours a day of Twitter or something. And it's a pretty well done feature, and I find it helps. Not specific to games, it's more sort of general. But then you can also set up focus modes, and these have been hugely improved in iOS 16. And so I have like a gaming focus mode where if I turn it on, it changes my lock screen to a screen that like visually reminds me like, hey, don't pick up your phone right now, you're gaming. It will change my, my notifications.
I need details.
Settings.
What is that lock screen?
Oh, they have these. I haven't done anything particularly good with it. When they added the new lock screen features, they added a bunch of different ways to set up a lock screen.
Okay.
And one of them is you just type in a bunch of emoji, and it will create a visual design based on those emoji, where it just sort of tiles them on the screen. So it's like, mine is like game controllers and then the no prohibitory sign just piled all over.
So it's not like, Sonic giving you attitude or something.
No, actually, I should look for a good Sonic the Hedgehog giving me attitude background. That'd be good. I didn't get deep enough into it to set up something cute like that. But also, it just turns off my notifications and does a few other basic things to like try to like mostly just remind me like, hey, if you pick up your phone and you're it's sort of like a self slap on the wrist where it's like, hey, no, don't do that right now. You wanted to be doing this other thing that you're going to enjoy more. And if you let yourself do the bad phone, it will do the bad brain on you. And so
please try not to use too technical language with us, Raygan, while you're...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I have the bad brain, and the phone, the bad screen does the bad brain to me. So like there's a lot of little things you can do like that. And the other big one is I go and plug in my phone to charge where it's out of reach. And that helps a lot.
It's amazing. I'll do that at work sometimes. I'll just leave it in the other room because I know.
And then I'm like, I think about like I should reach for my phone. I do reach for my phone. Like my hand just goes to my pocket where my phone would be, and it's not there. And I'm like, it's off charging and having a nice time, and I'm in here having a nice time, and we're both happy. And then I go back to my game. So like this is a problem that I have had to really like intentionally address in my life. And if that's a problem that you have, think about stuff like that. And don't be ashamed of that problem. It's a thing that I think a lot, and also don't feel like it's silly. Like I think a lot of people have these kinds of thoughts about like, their phone use when it relates to things like spending time with their family or focusing on work. And not everybody really thinks about that kind of phone use when it comes to things like enjoying the entertainment that you want to enjoy. So maybe is the thing.
Yeah. I think that's a great, a great thought for us to kind of wrap things up on. But I do want to say, I think with this, maybe we have enough time to do a little bit of what's making us happy this week.
Yeah, let's make it quick, but let's do it.
All right.
Shane, what's making you happy this week?
Oh, I didn't think I'd be first.
Nate, what's making you happy this week?
Well, Raygan, a lot of things. First of all, I'm happy that you're back and you've got a wonderful new child in your life. And then I'm also happy that it's fall and a local brewery that is not one of my favorite breweries, but they serve a purpose. They're one of the biggest ones. Their pumpkin beer is out. And I don't generally...
You're reading my mind, Nate. You're reading my mind. Pumpkin beer.
I don't typically go for like, essentially like a flavored beer, but the company's Schlafly. It's one of the biggest breweries in St. Louis, and their pumpkin beer is fantastic, and it's out, and I've been enjoying it, and it's making me happy.
I miss Schlafly. That was a good brewery. St. Louis was such a good beer town.
Really?
Yeah.
A few times I visited you guys there, I definitely enjoyed the beer.
It's one of the best parts about St. Louis. It's an interesting city because the Anheuser-Busch brewery is here, right? So first of all,
there's people there that are just like AB all the way. That's all I drink.
Yeah. Well, no, I ran into that when I first moved there. I was at some like little like bowling meet and greet with my wife's work, and there was like a bucket or like a cooler full of beers, and they had like Schlafly's and stuff in there. And I was trying to like be friendly with people, and I was handing somebody a beer, and she like went to reach for it and like said and like almost like jumped back and said, I only drink AB.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what she meant. I was like, AB? What is AB? Oh. Yeah, it's like a religious level here.
I don't know. That is weird. Not the I have almost never experienced what you're talking about here. Most of the time, people in my experience here are like, oh God, that, like, no, because...
Well, this was not a young person.
Yeah, okay.
So it might be generational.
But because of the AB brewery, Missouri, but St. Louis in particular, as you can expect, because of the way our political system works, we have very, very loose rules and regulations around breweries, and that has allowed St. Louis to be pretty like ahead of the game on like the microbrewery scene and whatnot. So there's a lot of really good breweries, and Schlafly has been around since I think the late 80s or early 90s, and at this point, it's more like I think they're more known as like there's a bunch of brewery or like tap rooms and family restaurants, that you go to that are all tied to their breweries. And I think the beer is fine. It's not bad. There's just far more interesting breweries going on at this point. But the pumpkin ale, it's great. It's the best that I've ever had. And I've pursued other, because I like it so much. I'm like, surely these other craft breweries that are putting out pumpkin beers, like, have to be doing something more interesting than Schlafly, because that's generally my experience. And no, like, it's great. So if you're ever in this part of the world and you like pumpkin beer, they only do it in this time of year too. So check it out. It's really, really good. And it's like 8%. So you got to look out. It's a heavy pumpkin beer.
So I was going to make my what's making me happy this week the recent release of the PGA Tour 2K23, but I already got a great opportunity to wax about that earlier in the episode, so I won't bother you with that. So instead, I will say what's making me happy this week, as a distant second to PGA Tour 2K23, is the birth of my third child.
See, Raygan, that was my what's making me happy, so you can't do that one. I claimed the birth of your child as one of mine. So
all right, you're right. I'll have to think of something else or have a new child. So I haven't engaged with much media other than that. Okay, here, I'll make a real one, but it's not particularly timely. The one movie that I've watched this week, every year, like lots of people have their horror movies that they watch around Halloween. There's one that my wife and I watch every year, and we just rewatched it, and I will recommend it to absolutely everyone. And it is the WNUF Halloween special. Have you guys seen WNUF?
No.
Oh, you're missing out. You'd love it. So the quick setup is that it is an absolutely pitch perfect fake imitation of a VHS recording of a local news Halloween special from the 90s, complete with all of the ads.
Okay, nice.
And it's like the local news has sent an on-site correspondent to a house where an infamous series of murders happened, and they are going to have like a pair of clairvoyants or whatever do an on-air seance, and it's all doing the goof 'em up side of that from the 90s. And most of the joy of this Halloween special is just the absolutely pitch perfect like 90s local TV personality vibe, and the fake ads, which are really, really excellent and very funny. But like, it's so well done, it's so accurate and pitch perfect. And it's only barely a horror movie, but weird shit does happen in the haunted house on air, and they have to cut away, that kind of thing. You should watch it.
Yeah,
you'd love it. It
sounds cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm. I'm having flashbacks to Karen K on the Fox Kids Club and Fox 26.
It's that level. Yeah, it's exactly like that kind of thing.
Yeah, she was my first crush. But I'm also kind of, for what's making me happy this week, flashing back to the 1990s. I want you guys to try and remember the best commercial of all time. Maybe imagine a world where time drifts slowly. A world
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. So
sail away, sail away, sail away.
Hey. So back in 1994,
I don't know if Nate knows what we're talking about.
I'm sure that I will, but I just have to, this is just one of those moments that happens to me on this podcast where the two of you share your childhood with each other again. Absolutely. And I have to wait to be caught back up.
Well, back in 19, I think it's actually 1997 would be when I was first exposed to it, because that was when it was re-released and then heavily promoted through direct response television commercials. This was back in the day when if you wanted to sell a new album of new age music, the way you would do it would be you would make a commercial that prominently featured ocean waves and unicorns. And so Pure Moods was a really fantastic album and a really excellent commercial way back in the 1990s. And it prominently featured songs like Return to Innocence by Enigma.
Enya was definitely on there, I believe.
Yes, Enya absolutely was on there with their wonderful song Orinoco Flow. There was several like soundtrack.
I'm just looking this up. Theme from Twin Peaks Firewalk with me.
Yes, absolutely. That one's there for Nate. I know, Nate, you guys are fans of Twin Peaks. So if you this album is an absolute vibe. Vibes are exactly why it was created. It is very much focused on kind of a mix of like new age, chill music, ambient music, world music, and mixed in with a little bit of like down tempo trip hop and smooth jazz. And this was, even just the ad coming on was enough to give me a significant level of chill back in the day. So I have what happened to me recently is I was hanging around with some friends. I was having a little backyard birthday get together. And
you did
someone said something. I think Pure Mood somehow came up in conversation, and I was playing DJ, so I thought to myself, I bet that's on Apple Music. Yes, it is. So I started with track 1, and we listened to Pure Moods all the way through, baby. In fact, at one point, someone not everyone was really part of the conversation when Pure Moods came up. So people were starting to hear every time one of the songs would come on, people in the party would be like, "Oh my God, I love this song. I know this one." And by the time we got about like 4 or 5 tracks deep,
people were like, "What the fuck are you doing, Shane?"
I was like, they were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, you guys, you caught me. It was Pure Moods." And everyone was like, "Hey, I remember Pure Moods." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll change it." And that's when it got to the Dado Paranormal Activity remix of the X-Files theme. That song doesn't go do 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 until you're probably 2/3 of the way through the song. So when we finally got there, I was like, "Gotcha, guys! We're still in Pure Moods." And up next, Tubular Bells.
Tubular bells.
Yes.
What was the phrasing on that ad? I remember there was a phrase. It was like drift away on the cloud of tubular bells. I wish I had the text of the ad in front of me. It was wonderful.
Experience Pure Moods.
Well, I definitely know what you guys are talking about. I have not thought about that since roughly 1997. So thank you for bringing that back.
You're very welcome, Nate. And to all of our listeners, you too can experience Pure Moods.
Experience the timeless pleasures of Tubular Bells.
That's it. The timeless pleasures of Tubular Bells. Yes.
No,
the timeless
gives
pleasures.
You the feeling of turning into a melted puddle of goo. Send a check or money order for the amount shown on screen.
$17.99. That's what I'm guessing it was. Was it $17.99? I'm guessing it was $17.99.
Oh man, that would be kind of expensive for an album of.
No, it wouldn't.
Era,
$17.99 was what CDs cost, man.
Yeah.
They were expensive as hell back then.
Oh man, I'm spoiled now. But yeah, you guys. I guess that's what I'm telling our listeners, which is go on like your favorite music streaming service and find if it's not the Pure Moods specifically, find those old compilations that you used to see the ad for and
good,
live it up.
Find the Gregorian chant one.
Yeah.
I know that one got advertised a lot too. Anyway, thank you, listeners, for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find our contact form and links to all of our stuff, searchable show notes page, etc., etc. You can also support our show by finding us on Patreon, patreon.com/theshortgame. We've had some new supporters recently. We really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you do support the show, and you can do that at any level, you can throw us as much money as you want. If you support us for even just $1 a month, you will get instant access to our Discord. That's where we talk about the show. We plan things. You can ask me questions about my new baby, and I will answer them probably. You can come on there and talk about IF Comp. I know some folks may be joining us and wondering, where's the next IF Comp episode? It's coming. I have the brain problems. We're getting through it. But IF Comp will be going back to that and talking about games, so it's a great place to chat about those. And if you support us at the $5 a month level, I will send you some stickers as soon as I am able to get out to the post office. And let's see. You can also find us on Twitter @_shortgame. You can find me on Twitter @Raygan K. That's RAYGANK. Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me in the timeless pleasures of Tubular Bells.
Yes. And Nate, where can people find you?
Same.
And listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.